Is there a link? There it is in the Bible, the word avodah. You do a search on Google and go into avodah, you'll find there is an avodah institute, which is now linked with Yale University, run by one of the finest believers who used to work with HSBC in London and then retired to go into theological teaching, and he's created this institute called the Avodah Institute, David Miller. It's a fascinating word, and I would urge you to research it and look at it, because it will give you the link between worship and work, and therefore hope at work, because worship and work are linked. In Israel, there's a party, the Labour Party is called Havodah. If you look at Israeli politics, which is, the Labour Party, work. So work and worship are absolutely linked. And as you look at that whole experience of work and worship, you'll say, well, what's it about? Again, how did I come across, where did this hit me personally? I left the corner shop, I left Lloyds Bank International, and I left Lloyds Bank International because I said to you I wasn't going to get very far. I knew I wouldn't get very far there. Apart from glass doors and glass ceilings, I hadn't been to the right school. You come as a refugee, you're sent to the local comprehensive in Shepherd's Bush. Doesn't get you very far, friends. I can tell you the wrong type of school, and the wrong type of school tie, and all that. So my uncle, my wife's uncle, was setting up a trading business, and he said, you've got the 2 years banking experience, you've done your operations research, would you join the family business? It's the biggest risk I could take, from a safe institutional job here in the city to now join a sort of shaky, flaky, unknown startup commodity trading business. Friends, it was so amazing. This little business that I joined at the age of 27, 28, 10 years later, some amazing things happened. The business grew to have 7,000 people operating in 15 countries, turning over $200 million. We have tea estates in India, vineyards in France, a brewery in Nigeria, a tomato farm in northern Nigeria, a seafoods plant in Scotland, employing 600 people right up north in many different ports. And I was very impressed that Derek knew every single one of them. Very few people had heard of Inverbervie, even though they're Scottish. So I was most impressed that you knew of its existence. And there I was running this big business. And part of my business obviously took me to travels, and I went to India. Why did I go to India? Because the seafoods business that I was operating, every 3 months, every year, for 3 months, they laid everybody off. No fish. I said, it's seasonal, there's no fish. I said, nonsense. There's fish in the sea. We've got huge oceans all over the world. Who says there's no fish for 3 months? I'm a global businessman. I've seen internationally there's fish. I'm going to go abroad, and I know where I can buy fish. So I went to India. I traveled to every port in India. I went to, you name it, I went there. And I ate fish, I breathed fish, I drank fish, and I probably smelled of fish. It was just because I wanted to buy fish. But on the last day of this trip, and this was a 10-day trip, in 1987, on the last day of the trip, I decided, I always took as a standard practice to go and visit a community project. And something I would encourage you to think about whenever you're traveling in business, whichever city you go to, whichever country you go to, try and find time to look at the local community project. It's so important, because that's where we are grounded. That's where we can feel and touch and sense what the local situation is like. I didn't know what this would be like. I was in Bombay. I was going to take the flight at midnight to Glasgow, and then to Paris, and then to Glasgow, where my family were in Perth. And the local community workers met me at 4 o'clock, and they knew they had about 4 hours of my time, maybe 5. And they just took me straight to the slums in Bombay. How many of you have seen Slumdog Millionaire? Quite a few of you. That slum that is featured in the Slumdog Millionaire film is the slum I went to in 1987. And when I went in, I saw a 5-year-old kid, and I said, where's this kid going to sleep? And they showed me a water pipe, and they said, that's his home. And I said, you mean that's his home? I said, why can't he sleep across there on the pavement where there are cardboard boxes? They said, he can't because the slumlord won't allow it. I said, who's a slumlord? And they explained to me about slumlords. And they said, can't. And then they took me to another street, and this is the same street in Slumdog Millionaire, where you see these prostitutes. Young girls who've only probably just hit puberty, behind iron cages, behind bars. It doesn't take much imagination from anyone to know what's going to happen to those girls that night. And it made me sick. I just felt nauseated. You know, here I was in Perth in Scotland, and I was living in Geneva before that, and in London before that. In every place I lived in, I was very quickly sort of asked to be in leadership of the church, and I attended Bible studies and led Bible studies, and I did my tithe, and I was probably an elder in the church, and here I was in this slum thinking, what is going on here? Is this the same planet we're living on? And I got on that flight, and to me it was a hopeless situation. I said, what can one do? And on that flight, I remember still, it was an Air France flight. I had my first class ticket, you know, everybody goes right, you go left, and you sit very nicely in your own seat and forget the whole world. And as you go in, you're offered caviar and champagne. This was Air France. I couldn't touch it. I then sat down in my seat. I couldn't eat. And when everybody went to sleep at about 1 o'clock or so, I just broke down. I literally just wept uncontrollably. Nobody could, there was sleep, so there was nobody watching, and I was just weeping. And I said, what is this that we are in a world where this sort of thing can exist? And friends, issues of justice, issues of poverty, issues of compassion, all those were going through my mind. What can we do? What can we do? Selfishness, the me culture. And you know, at least I couldn't help thinking this way. I came back, spoke to my wife, I said, you know, this is crazy. What are we doing? We're earning money which is piling up in a bank where even the interest cannot be spent. What is this about? You know, isn't there something wrong here? How can we bring hope? Whatever the workplace is. And there I then started a project called Christmas Cracker. I mean, tonight's not about projects and what happened there. It's about hope in the workplace. All I want you to know is, in fact, you use the word making a difference. No, the speaker before said, you know, the problem is so huge, what difference can I make? You know, that's what my sister said to me. She's not a believer. I called her, you know, we're part of an Asian family. I'm still in touch with my extended family. You know, there is a whole issue of respect and structure. And that's why I called my older sister to say to her, this is what I've been through. And I'm going to now do this. I'm leaving my work. I've sold my shares. Me and my wife, we're both going to start